Hello again, Chris Lee and Chase Robinson of Southeastern 16 here to preview Mississippi State's road trip to Texas, 3:15 Central on the SEC Network. Odds makers have Texas around a 39-point favorite as we do this on Monday afternoon. My model's got Texas by 34, but my model also doesn't take into account the fact that Blake Shapen, Mississippi State starting quarterback, is done for the year with injury. State, aside from that, had issues on defense last week. Meanwhile, Texas just steamrolling anything and everything in its path. Number one in the AP poll last week. I hadn't seen it today, but I would presume number one again today. Chase, this is going to be a tough spot for Mississippi State, even with Blake Shapen and without him. A really tough spot.
Yeah, it's, if things weren't going poor enough in Starkville to then lose Blake Shapen, that's tough. And that's just unfortunate news. I mean, one for Blake Shapen to have to go out. You hate to see that when a player is out with injury for the rest of the season. But then for Mississippi State, I mean, Jeff Levy went out and got him, knowing he could be his guy, and then to see him go down, I mean, that puts him in a tough spot as well. So it's just really tough all the way around to lose Shapen. And again, as if things weren't going poor enough in Starkville, it gets a little worse.
Yeah, well, let's start with when State's got the ball. Michael Van Buren, the quarterback this week, he was in high school this time a year ago, was kind of a 3.5-star recruit, roughly 4 stars in some services, 3 in others. The number 388 player in the class, I think, according to On3 on the whole. Actually, I had him as the third-team quarterback coming into the season behind Chris Parson, but I guess he won that backup job in fall camp or between weeks or whatever. They have found a little bit of a balanced running attack at time with Keyvone Lee and Davon Booth. We've talked about how they've got some targets. But they will not have faced a defense like Texas. And let me give you some numbers here. Between the two sides, Mississippi State's offense is averaging 67 plays and 31 points a game. Pretty respectable turnover rate of 1.5%. They pass the ball 51% of the time at 7.3 yards per throw, 4.6 yards per running play. That accounts for sacks, do both figures, 6 yards per snap total. And I know a lot of that racked up in the opener. Who did they play?
Eastern
Kentucky. But I mean, and they had some decent they played from behind a lot the last few games. To be honest, the Toledo game was a disaster a couple weeks ago. Arizona State was over at halftime. So there's a lot of these stats accumulating garbage. The Florida game, I mean, Florida led that one by 2 touchdowns at half. Texas's defense has been pretty good. The Longhorns, and again, not against the toughest schedule of offensive foes, 5.5 points per game on 58 snaps, a 3.5% turnover rate. Teams throw it 52% of the time against the Longhorns, but just 3.6 yards per pass play, 3.8 per rush play for a total of 3.7 total. The Longhorns aren't a huge get after the passer team, and State has had some trouble protecting the quarterback, 13 sacks, but they do have some pass rushers. This is a tough spot for Van Buren to be in. They're going to have to run the ball pretty well, and they can't afford the kind of game flow they've had the last few games where they've fallen behind a lot early. I'm framing it through the Mississippi State point of view, because when it's almost a 40-point line, you got to come up with scenarios where it's interesting or what's the point of doing this. But that would seem to be their most viable scenario to make this a closer game than people think.
Yeah, you can't get behind to a team like Texas. I mean, this is not Toledo and it's not Florida. I mean, you're talking about the number 1 team in the country and an elite defense. And if you get down early, they're going to hit that line very quickly, and that's what they're dealing with here. And you hope that that they can get behind Van Buren and he can get something going, and they can get that rushing attack going a little bit. And I think Keyvone Lee, I mean, he's a good back. It's just he's kind of stuck in this. They're not able to move the ball really, and so if they're able to get him going, maybe that can change things I'm not sure if they will be able to against Texas, but I think they can just as time moves on a little bit.
All right, let's flip sides of the matchup before we do. A reminder, this brought to you by BetOnline, which is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff. Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200,000. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of over 150 slots games. Head to the website today to get in on all the action. Bet online, the game starts here. Texas offense, 73 snaps a game on average, 47.5 points, 1.7% turnover rate on rushing plays, 5 yards even per pop, 9.4 per passing play. Mississippi State's defense, here are your numbers. 31.8 points against on 73 snaps as they've had a hard time getting off the field, a 1% turnover rate. Part of that, teams are running at 60% of the time for 5.1 yards per run play as they're playing with leads, and 6.7 per pass play for a total of 5.7 per snap. Yeah, State has had fits stopping the run. Texas can throw the ball pretty well through the best quarterback room in the nation. I don't know if we see Quinn Ewers or Arch Manning or what combination this week. Maybe you got some information on this as we do it Monday afternoon, but let's hit that and your thoughts on this side of the matchup.
Yeah, Sark said in his press conference this morning that it will all depend on how Quinn Ewers is able to handle practice, what he looks like taking reps throughout practice this week. He said that in what he's seen a little bit yesterday afternoon and maybe this morning, that he did look better than he thought he would. But I could see them not wanting to take any chances in this game. Go with Arch Manning, let him do his thing, and make sure Quinn Ewers is healthy for, some of the games to come. But we may see Quinn Ewers. It's really up in the air right now. And as Sark said last week, he's day to day, week to week, and they'll just keep monitoring him based on what he's able to do in practice and if they think he's ready for a game.
Yeah, if it's me, you got a bye week next week, then you got Oklahoma next week, and Oklahoma can't score. What Oklahoma can do is get after you.
Yep.
And if I'm them, I'm just letting him get healthy, give Arch some reps, and call it a day. Because I think they can win with either one. That's just me. I don't know what Sark's going to think, but let's get the picks. Tell me who you're taking and why.
I think Texas big here. Texas has been getting it done. I think they continue to. I like the play of or the way that they're running the ball. I like the way they're getting it done in the air as well. Isaiah Bond has been a great addition to this Texas team at wide receiver. I really like Texas. I mean, there's a reason they're number one in the country. I think this is a team that possibly could win it all. That's just the makings of this team. I like the way Sark coaches them and leads this offense. So no matter who's at quarterback, I think Texas gets a big win in Starkville.
Yeah, actually, it's in Austin, isn't it?
Okay, it's in Austin.
It is in Austin. Yeah, and here's the thing. I think in addition to playing a true freshman quarterback for his first start on the road, I think their bigger problems are on defense. I've watched a lot of them. They just don't have the athletes and the depth up front. The problem is in a game script where Texas is going to get ahead, Texas will just keep pounding the ball. I don't think they've got the depth up front to stop it. So ball control becomes an issue. I think Texas can just coast and drive out long drives, and a tough spot for Jeff Lebby in that program. I feel badly for them, starting with what happened with Mike Leach 2 years ago. But sometimes in a rebuild cycle, when they've gone through 3 coaches in 3 years, it's just inevitable fallout. Yeah, if this one's even close at halftime, I'll be surprised. But we'll be here to talk about it afterwards. Best way to get that, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, enable your notifications. Caroline.smith@southeastern14.com for advertising inquiries. And we are your home for one-stop coverage of SEC football, baseball, and basketball year-round. Yes, even year-round in the other 2 sports that aren't in season. For Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. You've been watching Southeastern 16 presented by BetOnline.